to try something we haven't done before. Can you complete the sentence? Erotic liberation is...
Erotic liberation is...
Erotic liberation.
What is erotic liberation?
Erotic liberation is...
Erotic liberation is fun.
You are listening to the Erotic Liberation Podcast. Hi, friends. Craig Cullinane here, the Erotic Liberation Podcast. You've turned it on. And the Erotic Liberation Podcast is coming to you from the Body Electric School. This is a podcast where we share and celebrate our erotic selves. This podcast, like the school, Body Electric, is a safe space for discovery and transformation, titillation, pleasure, liberation, and all those wonderful shuns that make our lives so spicy and beautiful. And I'm so happy and excited to be here with our guest this episode, Goddess Amina. Hi, Goddess Amina.
Hello, Craig. How are you?
I'm doing well. And do I call you Goddess, or is it like a full thing, like Goddess Amina every time, or how's that go?
No, Goddess works great for me. You can also call me Amina. It is also a divine name. So both work really well.
Beautiful. And I want to ask you about your name in a second because I love it. But at first I want to give a little bio for our friends out there. Goddess Amina founded the Atlanta Institute of Tantra in 2017. But just recently, I noticed, changed the name to the Amina Institute for Embodiment and Healing on January 1st this year, 2025. And I want to hear about that change because I'm so curious about that. But she founded what is now the Amina Institute for Embodiment and Healing in 2017, which has become the premier institute for training, certifying, and providing resources to sexologists, sacred sex workers, sex doulas, cuddle professionals, and body workers who specialize in somatic sexology, a spiritual embodiment organization and community created by and centering Black women and their pleasure. And she has experience in many realms, Tantra and sex surrogacy, trained in somatic experiencing, so many beautiful things that we're going to dive into. And so with all of that, welcome, Goddess Amina. And I'm so curious about your name and how it derived and what it means to you and this change in the name of your wonderful school.
Yeah. So my name Amina is actually Arabic in origin.
Oh.
And it means trust or faith, faith in something or trust in something, belief. I like to explain it best because we know amen pretty commonly in the world. And so it shares the same root in that you're saying, like, I put trust that this prayer is being carried forward. And a couple of things happened, right? Like I was Tantra in Paradise for a very long time when I was based in Hawaii. And then I was Tantra in the Bay when I was in Oakland. And then I was Tantra, Atlanta Institute of Tantra. And when I got to Atlanta, and then I moved from Atlanta. And I was like, okay, how many LLCs are we going to have in this? It was one part of it. It's just like, okay, there needs to be something like this is an institution now and you are a nomad. So you can't keep renaming it everywhere we go. So that was one part of it. The other part is I really think that there is a tradition of naming organizations after the founders that, that we have kind of shied away from recently in the last, 20, 30 years, where as you were seeing less and less of it. And a lot of the leaders have been proven themselves to be problematic. So I get that. It's like Brigham yoga didn't age well. But I have a very strong ethical compass and moral compass that helps guide my erotic practice and my erotic teachings and the way I interact with my community. And so I'm not worried about that. So that's that's a non-worry for me. Right. And it didn't even occur to me to like really try to think of a name. It was like, it's time to change the name and I'm going to call it mine. Like this is my project. It's my program. I have poured my blood, sweat, pussy juice, energy into this, all of it. And the name means something. It means to trust And this is about work that we're saying we want to trust in our bodies. We want to trust in our experience. And what better word could we use for that, right?
Trust and faith in something. And so how
Yeah.
does that feel in your body to like have this name be named that now? Your name.
You know, it feels really good because first of all, I love my name. I love Amina as a name. I chose the name. It's my Muslim name. And so I chose that name in my, my religious experience growing up. When I was 16 or so, I chose the name.
Wow.
And so, so it means it feels good to have that. And one of the things I love about my name though, is beyond all the other juiciness, is that no one ever mispronounces it, no matter where I go in the world, except in the US. We have a hard time with A's, I's, and pronunciation. But everywhere in the world, it's so easy to pronounce. It's so common.
Yeah.
And so it just like everything about it feels good. It looks good on paper. I like signing it. Yeah. And so I'm really just kind of landing in the space. I mean, we're only a couple weeks into the Amina Institute being a thing. And then I also there's also like this kind of like pulling back also that I noticed in my body where I'm like, ooh, who do you think you are?
The stories about taking up space or stepping into that.
Yeah. And so I feel that also in my body where there's this, ooh, okay, like you're occupying a lot of space right now. That name could be on a billboard. Like that's a lot of space we're taking up with you. And the mission has always been from the beginning to center Black women. So why wouldn't a Black woman's name be at the front? Yeah.
And it is you, but it also sounds like kind of like a consciousness that's more than you, that's bigger, that's embracing, that's welcoming of a larger vision and purpose.
Absolutely. With this name change, a shift has happened also. One, in that there's a shift of like, I have been, in the Tantra space for 20 years now. 2005 this makes 20 years of me opening up into, there's a thing called Tantra and I'm going to play with this. And so, so this space that of like coming into witnessing and learning and being in more of an understanding of Tantra also makes me say, well, is my brand actually doing this thing? Right. Or am I doing harm to this thing? Is there perceived harm? Because it's not even I'm not intentional, but like, how is this landing? How is this impacting the thing that I find to be very sacred and very, very much what has guided me deeply inside of my own body. And so that is also a part of it. And I realized I could actually name those things that I have learned and that I adopt from Tantra in English.
Yeah. I find that, kind of like I've kind of been in the body electric lineage for, I don't know, 20 years more. And I notice that as I continue to kind of dance with the energies of it all, and it continues to integrate and inform my life and change me and heal me and all of those things, it's kind of like I notice this, one of the Tantra principles that I've learned is this idea is as within, so without. As whatever's kind of happening in me in terms of my healing or my integration then wants to express outward in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm hearing that in terms of this name and stepping into that. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely. There's so much of what we've learned from Neo Tantra and also from various Tantra lineages kind of show up in our in our own weaving. And it's really it all is, I feel like, opening up right here.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And meeting also my community, the people that I connect with where they are, means that Sanskrit is not our tongue, right? It means that the languages that we use to convey, I can talk about and I can honor lineages that I've learned things from without without occupying the space of that lineage. And so, so
Interesting.
that's kind of what I'm
exciting.
leaning into and playing with, and
Love it.
it gives me more space also for like my freaky origins, because I feel like also then there's like I'm like holding this thing that's very sacred, and I'm like, but the floggers and the fire play is over there, and that doesn't really fit right here so
The
neatly. I can try to make it fit, but then I'm doing something else. But if I open this up and I acknowledge that we're doing something that includes parts of this, but it's not the central theme of that, then that gives us so much more space to play.
Well, let us share with us, and let's get to know you and your past, and what brought you to this, and where do you come from, and how did you flow into all of these wonderful awarenesses and experiences.
Yeah, I want to say I got lucky, but my grandmother would argue that I answered an ad in the Chicago Reader in 1997. So we're talking almost 30 years ago.
I'm hearing the echo, the whispers of destiny.
And yep. But the ad I already had, I was not necessarily looking for extra cash. I already had a job. I was already in the Army Reserves at the time. So I had a check coming in. I had my dad's GI Bill coming in. I also had my dad's death annuity. I was okay financially, but I was still working. And I saw an ad that said $300 an hour.
Okay.
This was 1997. Let me tell you. Right. That's still, I think, still pretty attractive. But in 1997, it was hella attractive. And so I answered the ad and went down and met with Dr. Dean Dow, who had who was a sex therapist. I didn't even know sex therapy existed. Wow. I was 19 years old. I didn't know anything existed. And he was looking for new sex surrogates to join his practice.
Incredible.
As we were called then. Now folks prefer the name surrogate partner. I still like the name sex surrogate, but I'm old school.
Because it kind of puts it out there, right?
Yeah, I'm like, this is, right? Sex doesn't always look like penetration, doesn't always look like genitals friction and whatever you have an idea of sex, but let's challenge that and not change the name.
Sure.
But I don't think Mark Zuckerberg likes it either, so partner surrogate it is.
Yes, it doesn't work well with the algorithm.
Yeah, it doesn't. So I answered the ad and I started working for him. Wow. And I went through an intense training for like 9 months. I had to go almost every day after school and sit with him and go through like all of these things. And I was terrified. In the training, I was only getting paid $100 per day, but I was shooting for that 300. I was terrified, so I didn't know what was going to happen when we first got our first client. Right, I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I don't mess this up.
Would you share about that first client? What was that like for you? Do you remember?
Yeah,
I can imagine.
And I don't think I think there's parts of it that I've kind of blurred out, but I remember just being so scared, but I'm a theater kid. So I know how to be like, put it on,
till you make it.
Right. And then nothing happening, like according to my brain, like, okay, we have these things we're going to do. And I know what happens if this happens, I should do this. Okay. And nothing really happened. He wasn't in a place where he was ready to explore sex and intimacy yet. It was, or intimacy, yes, not sex, not even
it wasn't there yet.
Sexual contact, yeah, it wasn't there yet. And so I had built up this whole thing, like, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna be a great whore. And then I got in there and it was like he was in freeze and we sat and we talked and we held hands. And we lied next to each other to see what that felt like. And that went on for like an hour and a half, 2 hours or so. And then that was it. It was done. I had to go back and tell Dr. Dow what happened and give my coins. So, and most of the sessions that I had weren't what I thought they were going to be. I thought,
Mhm.
I thought I was about to be like a lady of the
You
night,
know,
and I was a lady of the afternoon. It was it was totally different.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's how I found out that you could get paid
So,
in sex.
okay, so beautiful, and thank you so much. And Body Electric also, like you, offers sacred intimacy training, and something that
Hmm.
I've noticed. I'm trained as a sacred intimate, and is that there's some awakening of that archetype within.
Hmm.
There's some way that I speak for myself, can recognize like the inner temple whore, that
Right.
part of me. I don't know if it's a past life or it's some sort of like karmic lineage. I have no idea. The divine, whatever, the mystery of it all, where people are called and drawn to that work in a way that's about adventure, but also about deep service,
Hmm.
right? And so I'm imagining, I'm curious, like, I know you're going for the 300 and that's a beautiful goal,
Hmm.
but also I'm imagining that there was some other part of you that was drawn to the work, that was curious about that. Is that true? Or
Yeah, I was so curious. But a couple things. One, I grew up in a household where sex did not exist.
mm-hmm.
Not There was no bad sex, there was no good sex, there was just no sex. My mother was a single mother and she was still angry at her ex-husband,
Mm,
and I never saw her date. I never saw her hold hands with anybody, and there was no conversation about you might like boys one day and this might
there wasn't
happen.
even hidden sex. It was just
It
no
wasn't
sex.
it was just none. There was no birds and the bees conversation. There was nothing. And so I'm learning about sex at school and it's very taboo. I know I'm not supposed to talk about it. I know that much. How I knew
Mm,
that, I don't know, but that I knew that this couldn't
exactly.
come home. And so I was just deeply curious about sex as soon as I got my first tingle down there. I'm like,
Okay. What's happening?
yeah, and I remember I ordered this is the young listeners won't understand this, but back in the day you used to have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope off if you wanted something ordered from the back of the magazine. And
Mm,
I did. I ordered the Encyclopedia of Sex. I went to the post office and got a money order and sent it
wow.
off and
That's so
waited
empowering.
waited every day for this book to come so my mother wouldn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the kind
Intercepted.
of right. I did intercept the mail, and it took like weeks. This so different now with mail and such. So I've always had this deep curiosity about sex, and I think in that work, my bigger thing was not so much that the care was not so much awakened there. I'm a sister. I'm a middle child. Care is in my bones.
Mm,
But the curiosity of sex was there. And then witnessing the possibility of healing and care from that in that space. That was what was really different to me, because my mind was blown as soon as I started working with the clients, because I thought,
mm,
because every time, I'm a hot ass little 19-year-old. So who doesn't want to, get with
yeah.
this? It's a part of my psyche. And here I am with these people that are deeply struggling with
Yes.
intimacy in a way that I've never witnessed. And
Mm,
I think more than anything, just being cracked open in that
yes.
way, uh, it terrified me.
Like for them,
But
it's not in this moment about fun and pleasure. It's about I am suffering and
mhm,
yeah. Mm,
yeah. And so that started something, but it also at that age, also about a year in, I was like, I'm scared of this.
mm,
It's like kind of like
sure.
getting introduced to your magic and being like, no, never mind. I don't want to be a
Yes.
superpower. So
Mhm. Wow. Beautiful. Thank
yeah,
you for sharing that.
you're welcome.
So how did Tantra find you, or you find each other? Like, how did that enter your life?
That was much later. Now fast forward,
Yeah.
see, it was I'm now going through divorce.
Okay.
Number two,
Okay.
I am 25.
You were 20. So fast forward to 25 when you were
Fast
going through
forward
your
to
second
25,
divorce.
going
Okay.
through my second divorce. So we're skipping past a whole lot of story. But let's just say I love love, and I am a lover's lover, and I will fall into love.
And you dive deep.
And I dive deep. I finally stopped saying yes to proposals. But
Right. Wisdom comes over time, and
it takes a minute. It takes a minute.
love takes time to heal when you're hurting so much, says Mariah Carey.
Right, exactly. And so I had a coffee shop in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I was burnt out from that. I was burnt out from trying to be a wife. I was waking up at like 4 a.m.
And you're burned out. You're 25 and you're burned out.
Right. I'm like, yeah, this is going crazy, right? So this whole thing is, I sit where my husband and I are fighting, and we're in a tiff, and nothing's going well.
Mm.
And so I decided I'm going to have a spa day. And I host a spa day for me and my girlfriends who I haven't seen in a while because I've been working my butt off, and like I haven't seen them since the wedding, right? So we're like probably 7-8 months after the wedding. So I'm not going through the divorce just yet. It's coming. It's on the way though. It's in the mail. And so I get the massage therapist that arrives. I say I'm just going first. I'm getting the massage first. Yeah, I can get in line after me. Right. So I go and I get this massage, and it was just some random woman that I hired off of Craigslist. Craigslist was so amazing before the Craigslist killer went and ruined it all.
Yes.
And so I'm getting this massage, and it is a transcendental experience. Like, she changes my whole life. I didn't know the divorce was in the mail until she touched me.
Wow.
I didn't know that I was on the wrong path, in the wrong land, on the wrong journey, until I laid on that table. And she massaged me, and I cried, and I got off that table, and I went home and said I wanted a divorce. I sold the cafe, and I went to massage school. I decided I wanted to do what she did.
Incredible.
And that's really how I found Tantra, because after finishing massage school and massaging for a few more months, so now we're about a year and a half later, I'm like 27, 28. I'm training for the marathon. I'm training for the Honolulu Marathon. And I'm raising money for the Chicago Foundation for AIDS so that they'll send me for free. And I get to Hawaii, and I fall in love with Hawaii that day when I landed. And that was in December of 2005.
Wow.
And I never looked back. And when I got there, I saw I had already started offering sensual massage. Let me just back that up. Since I graduated from massage school, I went to hand jobs really quickly. Yeah. And I got to Hawaii, and I saw the sensual massages that people were offering were being marketed as Tantra, and I didn't know what that was.
Oh, wow.
And so I went and got a bunch of books on Tantra.
Amazing.
It's very confusing. I had Vedic Tantra. I had
so much.
So much. I
want to just go back just a titch. Okay? One of my coaching clients this morning, we were talking about, and you said this, how powerful it is when we realize when we know we're on the wrong path, and how that feels in our body. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing or going, or where I'm supposed to be giving my time and energy, and how that feels, and how useful that is to become aware of that. Yeah. Right. And then also how it feels to know when you are, and what a difference that is. Right. Go ahead.
Right. No, absolutely. I think for me in that moment, one of the emotions that I just remember so deeply was embarrassment.
Interesting.
Like, I was so embarrassed that I didn't know that I wanted to do this, and that I had this whole life.
Like, and there was a real should in there. I should have known.
Yeah, I should have known. And I have all these people in the other room that are waiting for me to come out, and I want to sneak into the table and never see them again. Like, this is not the life that I want. This is not my life. I'm not a housewife. I'm not.
What a gift.
It was an extreme gift. And I've often thought about this woman, like, wonder where she is now. She has no idea that on that table, like, she had to kind of help me gather myself, because I was definitely an emotional wreck.
And how many people maybe experience you that way? Oh, wow.
Well, that was my thought. And when I got off the table, I said, whatever she just did to me, I want to do that. So that was the moment for me that you were talking about earlier, like that care, the way that she held me, the way that she saw me, and then still held me despite seeing me.
Beautiful.
Was something that I knew I needed in that moment that I didn't know before that second.
Sacred work.
And I was
so you're in Hawaii, and you're like, Tantra books,
Yeah,
Massages.
massages. Carolyn and Charles Muir were there, and I was like, "Oh, a workshop! I'm gonna go to that. I'm doing tantra." And I was not. I was studying Vedic tantra and trying to understand how Shakti and Shiva merged with,
Dance.
yeah, and it was all very confusing. And then
Mm-hmm.
I found neo tantra.
Now, is that Osho's lineage? Is that?
The neo tantra was more like just kind of all of the stuff we get in the West. So looking
Oh, okay.
at, yeah, looking at the Muirs and their stuff, looking at mostly the Northern California brand of tantra,
Okay.
and then Osho was showing up, but I don't know, something about Osho just never.
I have a book of his called Neo Tantra. That's why I asked that.
Yeah, I think he writes about it, but not with a
Yeah.
happy face.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot there.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just like, like urban tantra is neo tantra, right? It's just this way that's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's neither Vedic nor Tibetan, it's neither Buddhist nor
Yeah.
nor ancient.
Kind of like this how all of that filters through some kind of modern Western expression, right?
Exactly, and
Mm.
that's what I was trying to. That was what I was trying to latch on to. But I'm also been a yogi since I can remember.
Wow.
And so I'm also like really into the Sanskrit and trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in Hawaii and there's Buddhist everywhere. So I'm trying to learn. There's Tantric Buddhist temples, or there's one Tantric Buddhist temple in Hawaii.
Wow.
On Oahu. There might be more, but I know there's one on Oahu. And so I'm trying to figure this out. I like chanting, but none of it seemed to match. Like nothing made any sense. And it wasn't until I found Vajrayana Tantra that was talking about the body.
Say that word again.
Vajrayana. So
Vajrayana.
yeah, it's like Vaj and then Rayana all together.
Perfect.
For the listeners here. And it was, I found that I found something that was actually really focusing on and centering the body as a tool for ascension, as a tool for connection, as a way of knowing self that made sense erotically to me. Now, it is not an erotic lineage, but the way that I received it and took it in, there are erotic elements. I mean, there's, Debbie Ward up in Authentic School of Tantra, Institute of Tantra, I think in Canada, does something through the Tibetan lineage with the five elemental tantra, which is definitely more rooted in sacred sexuality. And so so I just found it that way. It's just piecemealing and finding and then bringing those practices in, which, as much therapy as I've been in, we're just doing so much more wonders for me therapeutically. And also with my clients, I'd bring them into the same practices. I'd guide them in the same meditations I was learning.
Meditations and breath work and embodiment and awareness.
Exactly. Okay. And it was just, just became what my practice was. I could read people's bodies with ease once I learned to settle my own.
Yes.
And I almost felt psychic. Like I feel psychic.
Deep empathy.
Yeah, just this real deep ability to connect, because I am finally still enough to recognize the divinity that's with me in the room.
Yeah.
And that part of Tantra is where, the soul of my work is. And then I realized when I went to teach it, and this is what, kind of brings us to where I am today, is that as I go to teach it, that I realize like my path has all of these turns and ups and downs, and then somebody's coming to me because they just want the shortcut from A to B. And I'm like, oh, Tantra sounds like that to them also. Like if I actually don't do that, and I'm like, well, let's just focus on just finding our breath first. Then I'm okay. Well, now this is breath. Well, let's just focus on this. Now there's all these different elements that you will find in Tantra. You'll find in other sacred sexuality expressions. But let's actually look at the whole picture and not focus on like, how quickly we can master this skill that's going to make us the best lover, because that's not what it is.
Right. I know people. Yeah, it's right. It's like people go there for that particular desire, or so they think. And then, of course, it's a whole world, and it's really about coming home to self and awareness and befriending the self and creating the temple of our own bodies that we inhabit,
Right.
and how that flows in the world. And
Yeah, and it's funny because I had one of my most popular classes in Atlanta was my face sitting class, and people would,
face sitting.
yeah, face sitting.
Say more, please. I'm
It's
intrigued.
so I teach this beautiful workshop on face sitting, but it would sell out, right? People were like, I want to sit on faces. And what stops most, especially women and femme folks from sitting on faces, is this idea that we're going to somehow crush the face that has begged for our ass to use as a throne. And so I always start the class with letting people know that so far, and I Google before the classes to make sure, no one has ever died on record from being sat on.
Nobody's even had their nose messed up or anything.
No one. So let's just go ahead and get that out the room. And then we spend like 20, 30 minutes dropping into our body so that we can trust it enough to sit on it. And people are like, when does the face sitting starting? When is that happening? I came here for face sitting. Why are we breathing? Right, it's a process. The reason why so then and then we ease on it when we sit on faces. And
so when one sits on someone's face, the person whose face is being sit on, what are they doing? What's happening?
They're in heaven, I guess.
Are they just, are they offering pleasure?
No. Oh, no. They're they're just a throne. So it's called queening. And it's also the name of it. And they just become a throne for the ass. Like they want just the ass to sit on them. And
it's just the ass.
Yeah, there's levels to it. I mean, you could straddle in a way and so that in which your balls or your labia are on their face too. Like you can snorkel them with your penis, all kind of things can be done here. The catch is that the thing that I wanted people to really understand was like, they're asking for your ass, give it to them. They like, get a woman that come in, she's like, well, I'm 250 pounds. I'm like, you think he didn't see that? He knows. Sit on him. Yeah. He'll tap you if he needs to breathe. God.
So tell me, how did this beautiful experience come into being? Was it through your own inspiration? Like, I've never heard of this.
The face sitting?
Yeah.
People have asked me to, will I sit on their face? I have been all types of sex worker over the course of, since from massage school to today. It's been all over the place. I've had fun. I've traveled. I've seen the world. It's been a great experience. I've tried, I like to learn. And so fulfilling someone's fantasy is an opportunity for me to learn something new sometimes.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
I love sex. I love making love. I love what we create. I love the energy of arousal. And so I have had a lot of beautiful experiences, and face sitting is one that.
And so the people have requested that of you.
People request it because it's a lot, it's a safer breath play.
So intimate.
It's very intimate. It requires a level of trust on both sides because you have to really, the bottom is bottoming. They're only allowed to do what I'm going to allow them to do. And so they have to really struggle, resist any temptation to stick their tongue out, or they might be wearing a ball gag.
Wow.
For just that added sensation.
Incredible.
They get breath play out of it, a little asphyxiation without worrying about the trachea.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's all of these elements that, my thighs are kind of on their
heightened
ears.
Sensory experience.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I can do whatever I want. I can play with them and tease them.
Wow. And they're your little toy and you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Awesome.
And then they get to smell the sweet nectar of me.
So you're like, I'm doing a workshop.
Exactly. And that's really what it was. One of the things with we joked about Mark Zuckerberg and all the censorship earlier, but one of the things that really kind of put me on the map was that I would host these events called Tantra Tuesdays. And I would teach all kind of random. It would be a different workshop every week. But that was allowing me to get flyers out and get, my name out and fill up a room with people who were interested in a class and workshop on sex, and nobody else was doing it. Now we have sex educators doing it all over the place, but at the time it was unheard of, and people just weren't getting that experience.
Wow.
It wasn't, I won't say it was unheard of. It was just
rare.
It was rare, and even rare in Black spaces, in the Black community, really rare. And so people were coming to these classes and workshops, and I'd be leading meditations, and we spend the first 30 minutes just dropping into our body, and then we play for 30 minutes. We spend the first 30 minutes mingling, a little bit of wine, and then have some appetizers sitting out and letting everybody kind of settle into the energy of the space. And then 30 minutes meditating, grounding, centering, feeling ourselves, and then 30 minutes of play.
Yeah, beautiful. Like in Body Electric, when I teach a Body Electric workshop, I mean, it's like we're not really even beginning to touch for like hours.
Right. Yeah.
There's so much that we do to get there first. And sometimes people get a little confused by it, but ultimately they appreciate it so much that like nervous system gets to settle.
Yeah.
That's huge. And it's largely unconscious in folks. And so one of the things I love about the Amina Institute is that you say that this is a spiritual embodiment organization and community created by and centering Black women. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And I'm just really curious. I'm just imagining, or I would love to hear, just like in your travels, about like all of the experiences you have, all of the different learnings, the places you're going. It's like, it came to you to say, here, I need to be creating an organization that is centering the pleasure of Black women.
Mm-hmm. Largely because everywhere I went, I was the only Black woman. It's like, and none of my friends know this exists. Nobody's here. And I, my muggle job for a long time I worked in nonprofit management and marketing events, big, large scale events. So I had to learn a lot about marketing, and I know what it's like when you're talking to your audience. And so I'm often very conscious when I walk into a space. I read the room, and I'm like,
code switch and.
Yeah, you code switch, but also like one of the things I do is like looking, like if everybody here is a gay man, then they were talking to me, but they weren't talking to me. It just sounded really good to me, and I got here, and that's fine. I think we'll find out. But obviously the language was talking to a gay man because that's who they called in, right? And that marketing marketing is all energy. It's like, I'm gonna pull in what I'm gonna send out something to pull in exactly what I want, and what I realized among other things is that people either had no idea how to speak to the Black community at all, particularly not to the Black women. I would go to swinger spots and there'd be a ton of Black men, ace of spades all over the place, but not, for those that are listening, like, what is she talking about? Ace of spades are when like Black men are called in and their white husbands are cucks. And so they allow so it's a Black fetish thing for Black men. And you see that a lot in swinger spaces. So I would see that, but I didn't see Black women anywhere. And there were things that I noticed that we needed, that if we had showed up, we were going to make a U-turn anyway.
Right.
There were things that were missing for us to feel safe in those spaces. There were things that were missing for us to feel seen in those spaces. There are cultural differences that no one was noticing, wasn't happening. I recall a scene, a place where everyone was doing a ritual in water. And a Black woman in the early 2000s especially, we're much more natural minded now, but we're not getting our hair wet at this event. It's like that thought process hadn't even crossed anyone's mind. So it was one of those things that I was just like, there's not a space like this. And I'm getting all of this joy and pleasure, and I'm witnessing and I'm learning and I'm taking this into my space. But my clients at the time were mostly Asian and white men.
Interesting.
And so I still wasn't bringing it back to Black women, and I wanted to shift that. I wanted to shift my work. I wanted to shift my focus, and I made an intention one day to start speaking in my ads to Black women, and within 30 days it had flipped. I had 70% Black female clientele.
And what was that like for you to all of a sudden be welcoming and being of service to more communities of Black women kind of relatively quickly?
It was like wearing your boyfriend's warm hoodie. It was comforting and it was warm and it felt like it was mine.
And I can imagine that it really activated a real sense of like joy and purpose and like, oh, good. Like this is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. When you sit up and you're like, like you said, you know exactly where you're supposed to be and this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. That feels good. It felt like home.
I can imagine that many Black women are very grateful that you have spent time creating these spaces.
Yeah, we've had some fun.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
how long ago was that you started really centering?
That was in 2017.
Okay. So with
Yeah.
the birth of, with the
That was
Atlanta.
what led to the birth. Yeah, I moved to Atlanta. So there's a combination of things. I moved to Atlanta, which meant that my white male clientele was now going to be a Southerner. So that also, so
changes things.
that changes things. And I was, for the first few months, I realized first of all, I had a lot more Black clientele than I had before. And I had a lot more female clientele than I had before also. Because before I got to Atlanta, my clientele was only like 5%, maybe 10% women. And then when I got to Atlanta, I started getting more women. And so I thought, okay, there's room for me to show up.
Women as like a coach or as like a sacred intimate? Or
as a sacred intimate.
Okay.
Yeah, so for intimacy work and for coaching, but for intimacy work, the women were like, how do I get that? I did a demo of a bodywork session. I hosted a live demo, just like a meetup with wine, and I did a tall fancy thing, and it was called the Sacred Dance. Come witness the Sacred Dance, and it sold out. Like it was packed, and I was not expecting that. Like I'm brand new to Atlanta, I don't know anybody in the city, and I'm like, so I go out and do this whole performance of this ritual that I do to the body on my now husband. Third time's a charm.
Love. We heard that.
I love. And the women were like, I want that. And so like for the next, 6 months, I just was fully booked I started getting more and more women each week, just more and more women. The men were there too, but it was just more and more women. And I realized like I really prefer the women. Like when the women clients are coming, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Lisa today. Great, this is gonna be fun.
I believe it's like, right.
And so then I started. Then I just changed my mind. I got up to about 30% female clientele, and that was when I said, I'm gonna shift my language. I'm gonna shift my marketing. I'm gonna shift who I'm talking to, and it was. I'm not kidding. I remember to the day. It was 30 days later.
Incredible.
And it flipped. It was 70-30 women to men.
Incredible.
My language started terrifying men, which is wild. They're still scared. It's funny. I have these conversations and the men were like, I was just really scared. Like they'll tell me after their first appointment, I was just really scared of you. I'm like, what? What? Me? I have my Dom persona, but come on, this is.
I can't scare you if that's what we're going for. But,
right.
Well, I love your website. It's so beautiful and it's so clear. There's so much that you offer. It's amazing. I was just like looking at it, and you offer certification in authentic consent, aerosomatic touch, somatic sexological certification, sacred intimacy training, cuddle sage,
it looks like
cuddle sage.
Yeah.
I can't read my own handwriting. Kinky kinesiology, and this one I'm really curious about: 6-figure sexologist.
Yeah. So that's my mentor coaching bit. Is I kind of switched late last year and said, I'm training all these people, what they're finishing. I'm getting pokes from other programs that are coming, right? They've gone through Catherine Jesse's program. They've gone
Yeah.
through Davey Ward's program.
Somatic sex, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Educated.
they're coming to get another certificate. And you're like,
Yeah.
how many are you going to get for your work? Like, we need sacred intimates in the world, and you're
In
just
the
getting
world.
certificate after certificate, terrified to go out there. And
Right.
so I launched this program to kind of like push the babies out the bird's nest and get them into a space where they could actually stop gig working, stop driving Uber on the side, stop doing DoorDash or whatever, and be in your purpose. Learn how, like, what the way that you want to show up in this work.
Yeah.
What you're going to bring to this work, what you bring to this work already, and to start somewhere, like turn the light switch on and get started
And begin.
And I just coach them for 6 months to get them on. I have more clients than I could ever take on. I have people waiting for referrals.
Wow.
Because we don't have
Enough
enough
sacred
people.
intimates in the world.
We don't.
We always say that too. I know it's like it's always like, do you know somebody in Albuquerque? It's like there's never anybody, and it's like
yeah,
people that we trust, people that we know that we can send people to.
Exactly.
Because we trust them because they're grounded in something, and they're now one of the things I also loved about your website and what you're offering the world is how important ethics are to you.
Mm-hmm.
I just and that's also tying back to your name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trust and faith and ethics. And could you share a little bit about that? Because I just love what you communicate about the importance of ethics.
It breaks my heart, honestly, how much harm I see being done in the name of this work, because I know how powerful it is. I know how healing it is. And so every time I hear a story and the women trust me enough to tell me the stories, my heart just cracks each time. And one of the things I realize is, like, we actually don't have any like straightforward, to the point conversations on ethics, and we could look at other models, we could look at therapy, but I always say, I know enough people who have fucked their therapist a couple years after the statute of limitations has run out. And so I don't want to mimic that. I don't want to imitate that as our ethics. It says, oh, you can't have sex with them until this time, because you'll just lie. So what if we could actually just hold this space very sacred and be in community? Because I don't think ethics mean a thing if there's no community. Because a part of ethics, like, there are good people who are good people.
Yeah.
And they may or may not know better. But a part of the knowing better is how you show up in front of other people. Yes, ethics is who you are when no one's looking, but it's also like, can you wake up and face the people that are looking? Like, there's both sides of that to ethics. And there's so much harm that gets done because people think no one's looking. And so we're very open in our community, very open with my graduates to make sure they put up front to their clients that if there's an ethical violation, that they can come to me, and that we have a whole process that every graduate has to have 3 people in their community that they can trust to bring to the table, and that and the client gets to bring 3 people. If they want to start dating a client, they don't get to decide that in a session, or they don't get to decide that mid, series of a session. You have to wait, and you have to go get your people, and you have to come to council, and we have to sit as a community.
Amazing.
And like actually have some rules, like have some dignity in the way that you're showing up in this work, because otherwise there's a lot of ways you can be a sex worker. You don't have to come here and do it and pretend like you're doing it in this beautiful healing way.
Performative, right. But not real.
Yeah. Right. You can be a beautiful, amazing escort.
Absolutely.
It's like, that's fine. I've been a beautiful, amazing escort. I ain't got no beef with it. But don't bring that here. We've decided, we've told the world that we're doing this work in this way. So
because it's grounded in something, and one of the things it's grounded in is we do not want to harm.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
In Body Electric, we have something that we call the 60-day rule.
Mm-hmm.
So for, me as a teacher or people on the team, the assistants on the team, in a body electric workshop, for instance, I, as the facilitator, I'm never going to be available to be touched by people. That's just not a part of it.
Yeah.
The team, though, can be in sometimes, and for numbers and different kinds of pairings and whatever we're exploring.
Yeah.
And that's possible within the workshop space. But at the end of the workshop, in that final closing circle, when we are done, for 60 days after that moment, no one on our team can have any dating, sexual, any kind of relationship with any participant in that space.
Yeah, I love that.
Because, people open up, people expand and fall in love, and we're welcoming love. We're welcoming the beauty of those energies and connections and intimacies. And
I
it's
love
powerful.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we need to take care of people.
Right. I'm curious. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because I'm the same way. I don't allow when I'm teaching. I'm never the body that gets touched. I have a beautiful specimen of a man to do demos on. If anybody needs to see what it looks like, and vice versa. But I'm curious for you. Like for me, one of the things that was very apparent was how many people were coming to class hoping to be my demo or hoping to practice with me. And I'm curious what led you to, like, you saying, all right, no, I'm not available.
That's, I think, just, Body Electric has been going for like 40 years. And that's just been a very strong, clear ethic in the teaching lineage since really even before I came in. So when I came in and was trained as a teacher, that's what I learned. And we don't demo on participants. We demo on team members who've been there before. Right. Yeah. And so, so that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So is your work just for Black women?
No. Okay. No, we censor Black women. We have the most beautiful, diverse community that I could ever dream of. We're actually translating a lot of our work into Spanish, as we have a growing Latinx population in our community. We have graduates from Puerto Rico, from Peru, from Mexico. Wow. We also have white women, no white men.
Interesting.
No, I take white trans men.
Right.
No white cis men. Let me be clear.
White cis men. Interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting that you say that. I'm like, yeah, we have not had one show up, actually. Huh. There I go with that. Like, so everybody else, we've had a little bit of everybody else. And
sometimes that's okay.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's fine. There's enough censoring of white men in the world. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. And I don't know him personally, but I know there's Jeff Colley in Atlanta that has Tantra in Atlanta, or some Atlanta Tantra yoga thing. Cool. So I think most of the white men are already getting taken care of. And so, but it's very diverse. I've been really focused on making my work and my space safe for gender expansive folks as well. And so we have, trans folks in our community, but I want to make sure that in this experience that they feel very seen and held as well. And so working on that, and it's interesting though, because people have to learn what it's like to not be in the center. And so that can be challenging for folks, right? Absolutely. It's like, oh, wait. But we'll all be held, we'll all be tended to and cared for. We just keep Black women, our needs, our social reality, our, community, our just all the things that make us, that are different experience, and they're varied. They're so varied, we just keep that at the center. And I really think by keeping Black women in the center, actually everyone gets touched because of that. And censoring anyone else, to me, actually would be in a way that everyone else wouldn't get touched. Someone would get left out. Because Black women have nursed the nation, like quite literally, that I think that we touch everyone.
Just the natural, beautiful generosity
Yeah.
flows from that place of meeting those central needs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what's really in your attention now in your life? What's really important now?
Writing has been really fun for me now. I started a Substack.
Wonderful.
And I've just been really coming back to this. Like when I first was going to college, I was like, I'm going to be a writer. And then I was told writers didn't make money. And so I started studying something else. And I feel like I'm coming back to that.
You have such peace with loving money. I love that.
I do.
It's great. It's so
Yeah,
great.
no, I think there's a lot of ways to suffer. I don't think that's one of them that I want to
I
pick.
teach, I've been developing a class. I just taught my first iteration of the class called Money and Eros.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yes. It's like when we wake up our erotic life force and we turn it towards befriending and maximizing and healing our relationship with money.
Yes. Because money is energy. Remember, energy is currency. Current is in the name.
It's all love.
What are you doing with this energy?
Where we put our attention grows, and it's all love.
Yeah. So, so I'm writing, and I'm writing kind of memories of sexual experiences that I've had with clients.
Wow, cool.
And I'm having a little creative, liberty with it, but I'm really having fun with that right now. And I'm really leaning into, I've cleaned up my curriculum and learning more about curriculum development and kind of making it more accessible for more folks.
It's really beautiful language. I mean, it's so clear.
Thank
on
you.
Your website. I love it. I mean, I read it and I was like, this person has worked on this, thought it through. It's
been a long time coming, but I feel like this year, I'm not looking at the website, I'm not updating. I'm just going to work on this now because we did this. We're explaining. So that means a lot to hear you say that. And I'm 48.
Beautiful.
And so I'm navigating sex and perimenopause, and I'm navigating, I have a booty, like a real Black girl booty for the first time in my life, and what it means to curve out after being so focused on fit for so long. And I'm still moving, but I'm moving more like I want to dance and not lift weights. And so I'm just in this space of I feel like what's alive for me is just the body is alive in a whole new way. And I'm learning. It's like I'm getting another puberty, and I'm learning that, and I'm doing what I did the first puberty. I wrote all the time. I was in my diary all the time, and now here I am online. And so I'm just having fun right now. Everything is, the classes are set. My program is that I'm not adding anything else to it.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. And I'm just letting that go. And I'll if something feels like it needs more energy, I have the space right now. That's what's alive, is spaciousness. Spaciousness is what's alive. And
spaciousness. Beautiful.
Yeah.
What a joy to be with you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming here and sharing yourself and all your beautiful work and your story.
Thank you for having me. It's really been, it's felt really comfortable just having this conversation.
I'm so glad. That. And so, this is the Erotic Liberation podcast, and I know erotic liberation is something that has been on your mind and in your work and attention. And we invite our guests to, as we conclude the podcast, to, if you want to complete the sentence, erotic liberation is... Or maybe you just want to talk about what you think erotic liberation is. What is language, or what is erotic liberation to you? What does that mean?
Erotic liberation is the first and only step towards true liberation.
Wow.
There's no other way to get there than to first liberate the body, and the body is erotic.
Yes. That is the path. That is the doorway.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, many, many blessings to you.
Thank you.
And would you come back here and be with us again?
absolutely. And I want to get information about your Eros and money class also, because I want to make sure, like, I
Okay.
like to share stuff like that with my people because we
Okay.
need all of that. We need all of that too. So
Yes.
please,
No, it's good.
please.
It's like I guide them to wake up magnetize their body for money, breath work,
Yeah.
visioning, getting really clear about like, what are the old stories that I need to release? How can I shake it off and release it from my body?
Mm-hmm. I like
Every
that.
single time I get cash or money from a client, I rub it all over my body and I say, thank you, thank you. I am a magnet for money.
Yes.
I am a magnet for divine prosperity.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like medical practice.
I love it. I love
Part
that.
of it is, kind of unabashedly claiming that it is okay to desire and love money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Because I could have so much guilt about it or shame or like think some story about how that's not worthy of my attention or not spiritual or whatever the story is. And it's all a part of it.
And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but you knew that very early.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going for this $300 an hour.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in like, we did not have money. And so when I got some, I was like, give it all to me. I would like something more. And it's really been, it's really been like rolling like that. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I want to make some money doing this then. Let me do that. So, yeah.
And do you do one-on-one coaching with people?
I do one-on-one coaching. I do two-on-one coaching. We do two-on-two coaching with my husband and I partner.
Incredible.
I do hands-on body work, which is always going to be my first. It's my first medicine. It's always going to be my roots. Too. Yeah. And I mix it all. So I actually use one-on-one. I use my coaching as a gateway tool to prescribe touch or cuddle or movement, dance, plant medicine, all of these tools that we have, but it all starts with coaching.
We need to have you come back and talk about plant medicine. We didn't get to that.
Oh, we didn't. We could hang out and talk for days. Yeah, let me know when you want me to come back. This has been fun.
Thank you. And again, Goddess Amina, and tell us the website again. It'll be in the show notes, but just one more time.
Yeah, it's ATL, like Atlanta's airport code, tantra.com or .org, either one.
Goddess Amina. Thank you a million times.
Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.
You have been listening to the Erotic Liberation Podcast, brought to you by the Body Electric School. We air 2 new episodes on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and check out our other episodes at bodyelectric.org, where you can also find out more about our in-person and online workshops to support your erotic aliveness. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Body Electric School. And of course, if you love the podcast, please let the world know and leave us a review. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, we're wishing you pleasure, embodiment, and erotic liberation.